Gunson recently asked me if I would like to review their latest 3-axis gimbal. Now this is called the MOZA Air. It supports cameras like my Sony a6300, so that kind of mid to small range size cameras, up to 2.5 kilos payload it has. It has a claimed battery life of up to 8 hours, this particular gimbal as well. And as you can see, you can get these 2 hand grips for it. Well, they actually come with it in the box, so you get even more stability than just the single joystick. And there's an optional little remote for it that I have. So in this particular video, I'm going to go through the unboxing here, balancing and setting up my camera, the application, and then of course some sample footage, and at the end my final overall conclusion and opinion of the MOZA Air here. So it comes in this durable plastic hard case, very nice. And here we have all the parts we need for the gimbal. So here I have a couple of optional accessories. We get a stand here that is optional, so you can stand that up with the 3/4 thread that's on the bottom of the grip here. So in this grip you'd also put the 3 batteries in that we have here that need to be charged up first. So that stand is optional, and so is this. This is the tiny little thumb controller we get. Now this is working and operating via Bluetooth and will let us control the gimbal remotely. I think it's up to about 50 meters the range that this has, which is good. You can cycle through the various different modes, and depending if it supports your camera or not, you can also cycle the recording on and off straight from this without having to touch your camera. Now each of the batteries are 2000 milliamp hours, and charge time is going to be around about 2 to 3 hours, so make sure you fully charge them before you leave and go on a shoot. So in the little pouch here you get various different USB cables here. That's to connect the gimbal to your camera. So I'll be using this one here, which is the Sony A series cable. But you've got your Panasonic cables in there, Canon, and just another general one there, which is just your micro USB 2 to USB. That's for charging up the thumb controller. So the rest of the contents of the box is pretty straightforward. So these are the 2 hand grips if you decided you want to use the dual hand grips instead of just a single grip. That's part of the hand grips there, so this will go around and then lock onto the base of it. And then we have the gimbal itself, and this is the bracket there for the thumb controller. Now the handles of the grips also do have a 1/4 inch thread on them too. If you wanted to add or mount accessories to the bottom of those grips, then you do have that option. So one con here, I've noticed that some of the components here, like these hand grips, they are a little bit beat up and scratched from transit being in the box there. They should have really packaged things up with some plastic slips around it to avoid this kind of damage to it straight out of the box. Now this by far is the hardest part, and that's to balance your camera, which I'm just about to do now. So you've got 3 screws on each of the 3 axes to control and balance things, but it's good to see that they have put this sticker on here that says this side up, because it's a little bit hard without that sticker to actually know whether it should be this way, or you could have it even, flipped around the other way there, and you wouldn't really know either way. So nice that they put that on there just to help speed things up. But this is a lengthy process to balance it. And the build quality overall of the gimbal, well, it's made out of metal, it is solid. The finish I don't feel is quite as good as the crane that I reviewed. Alright, so this is what it looks like once you have it balanced. Now it could probably be a little bit better. You can see it's tilting forward just a little, but this is the goal. This is what you want it to be. As level as possible that you can get it. So this will save on the battery life. The gimbal, the motors have to work less, and you will get better battery life too as a result. So I have my external Rode mic on. I have an 18 to 105 lens too, so that's an extra weight there, and it's balanced out okay. But it did take me approximately 12 minutes or so, so there is a lot of messing about. So all these little knobs here, you have to unscrew those, you have to move this up or down, and the one right here on the back, and then this one down at the base as well. Now it is marked with numbers, so you can remember and mark those down, but the setup is always going to be a con on these gimbals, that it does take some time to get this set up. And what also slowed me down is I forgot to add the cable. So once I put the cable on, the weight of that cable was also enough to have it to tilt to one side just a little bit. Now that cable's needed, of course, so it will work in conjunction with my camera and when I use the little tiny thumb remote there that I have set up. So overall setup time is a big con. It does take quite a while, as expected here. There is a quick start guide too as well that you get in the box that's in English and in Chinese. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick rundown of the app you can use with it. So you can get it from Play Store. There's also one for iOS if you have an Apple device, and it allows you to remotely control it via the setting right here. So that will give you controls So you can control the pan, the tilt. At the moment that's just the tilt there, and then you can just pan it left and right. So remotely you can do this as long as you're within Bluetooth range. Now I've noticed that the sensitivity of the joystick sometimes can be a little, well, the delay of it actually, not really the sensitivity. So you have to be quite slow with it to get those real nice slow pans there, but it tends to work well. There is also this button right here which will reset the camera back to pointing straight ahead and get everything centered and in line there. You have the settings right here that you can go through and adjust various parameters and then save that to the camera. So similar to other gimbals, like the crane I looked at, you could adjust different things like the speed of it, the power. So there's a lot of things you can tweak there with it. Now this here is to calibrate it. There's calibration, also just a main button, again to reset things. And if you have a look under this option right here, this is our time lapse. But you're able to set your own time lapse here. So you can set the camera up pointing at what you want, then decide, okay, I want it to go to the right and then down or whatever. And then you can add that and you set up your own time lapse in the timeline, sorry. And then go through here and set up your shutter interval, the shutter duration, target clip length, and all that. And then when you hit start, the camera will do all that automatically there for you. Now to quickly go through the different modes of the gimbal here. So you can see here now it's in the fixed mode. I can rotate my wrist and the camera keeps pointing that way I want it to go to. I can change the hand I want to use. I can move, run around. It's going to keep it pointing that way. And you can see there the stabilization is keeping that camera level no matter what my arm is doing there, moving around. So tapping the joystick now will then put it into the follow mode. So now I rotate my wrist, you can see it will slowly move around and follow around in the direction I am going, but a nice, easy, smooth motion there. So this is good for getting pans. You can do a very slow pan by just moving around slowly or rotating your wrist here, and you see that camera comes around nicely, and the vertical is not affected there. So your pitch is held, but you can change that into other modes. Well, then that will also follow around too, depending on there. So it's not easy to know what mode you are in without the use of the joystick. So the little joystick here actually has on here, it will tell you what mode you're in, but here I don't know unless I use the Bluetooth app on the phone as well. Then I can set, for example, the locked mode, the free mode, and it's just a little bit easier that way. Now here you can see the joystick setup. So it's very handy because if you're going to be using those grips, then you can't touch, of course, the joystick that's on the main grip. You have to use this to control it, which is linked up via Bluetooth to it. It will automatically detect it, and here you can control that. So I can pan it left and right using this, and then you can also remotely start and stop your recording. Holding this down will turn it off. You've got the options here you can go through, the speed you're able to select. So you've got various different settings, so low, medium, and then high. And the options is just going through your modes. You can see it change that now to you've got your pitch yaw, and all lock mode there too as well. Now one thing I do like is that they've included that little stand here. So the little tiny tripod means that you can put this down, because I just weighed it. The whole setup here with my camera attached weighs almost 3 kilos. So that is very heavy to be holding the whole time. So at least I can prop it up on a table or put it down on the ground or something. Now the gimbal itself, just the gimbal without any cameras and without the grips and things, is 1.1 kilos. Now I have the camera stuck in the fixed mode, so it's going to keep pointing at the castle where I want it to point, and I can continue just to walk along here, and I'm just walking at a normal steady pace here, nothing special. And you can see the stabilization of the gimbal is doing a really good job here. I'll just give you a demonstration to what it's like without the gimbal, so just my camera and its lens. So I'll try and get the same shot again, but now I'm just holding it handheld, my own camera here, and you can see this is the stabilization of the lens without the gimbal. So a huge difference there in the stability. Doesn't really look that good at all. So you can use the joystick to pan along, which I'll do right now here, and it's a little bit sensitive, so it does take a while to get used to. Now the results will be better if you do mount this on a tripod. But that's one of the more slower speeds that I can get just using my thumb there on the joystick. You can of course also rotate your wrist a little, which I'll do now. and depending what mode you're in, then it will slowly pan around. So I now have the gimbal mounted onto a tripod here, and I'm just going to pan along very slowly using the joystick, and we can test and see how smooth it is at pans. And now I'm running along, testing the stabilization again. You can see it does a good job here with running, taking out a lot of those shakes. Not quite perfect though. Alright, so there we go. So that is the MOZA Air, and the stabilization on it is really very decent. I like some of the features it has, that time-lapse mode and things like that. Not that I would probably actually be using that too much myself. Now, the stabilization that it offers, you're going to notice it and get the most benefit if your lens or your camera has some form of stabilization as well. For example, the G lens that I've got here on my Sony, this has optical image stabilization built into the lens of this one. So that's going to help smooth things out even further. But if you've got a camera you're using, say a prime lens or something like that, that doesn't have any stabilization, then you will notice there will be some little jerky moments and things. It's not going to be perfect, 100% super smooth, but more so with the kind of stabilization that your camera already has. Like some of those Canons and other ones that offer, or the Sonys that have got really good stabilization, that's when you get the biggest benefit out of it. So it is a little bit heavy once you've got it all set up with your camera. I do like the fact though that it can hold up to 2.5 kilos in payload, because my camera with the external mic comes up to be almost about 2 kilos. So that is good there. I'm still within the limits. And the different modes and things we have on there too, going through your pan modes, and you can quickly reset it, triple tapping the button and things like that. So there's a bit of a learning curve with how it works, but once you get the hang of it, it's quite good. Now the grips, they do add a little bit more stability than just using the single grip like this, but there's a con there too, that if you're going to be using the grips, then you probably really want to get that optional but expensive thumb controller that we've got on the side here, so then I can still do my pans and I can still control it a little bit better. It gives me more information too about the battery life and all of that, which is handy. And of course, if you don't go for that, then holding it like this and using it is perfectly fine, but you can't then control the joystick, which is in the middle here. So you're going to have to do a bit of an awkward hold one of the grips and then use the joystick, which of course is possible and giving you another level of stability, a little bit more than just the single grip in the middle. So one of the other cons, one con for me too, was the application's not exactly, I feel, perfect. At least the Android one, they need to do a little bit more work on that. But it is nice to know that we can tweak some settings on there, we can save them. We've got the time-lapse mode, which I probably won't end up using myself personally, and you can calibrate the gimbal too as well. But it just feels that it needs a little bit of refinement, that app. It could be a bit better the way they've got things laid out, and the buttons and the controls and things like that. I notice there's a bit of a delay too when you move and things. Now that could be down to Bluetooth. But overall, this MOZA Air is a solid gimbal. Really do like it. I will be trying to use it a lot more in some of my reviews and things I do outdoors. Of course, I'll probably have to use it one-handed then if I'm holding, for example, a mobile phone and getting some outdoor shots and whatnot. But I will be trying to make the most of this particular gimbal here. Thank you so much for watching this review. Do hope to catch you back in the channel. I may have even another couple more gimbal reviews. Probably not this year, but next year in early 2018. Bye for now.